Welcome to tonight's edition of the Klown Hour podcast. I'm your host, Scott Burks. That's me. And my co-host, Wayne Nash, below us. Check him out on the yard, HBCU Sports, wraps up all things HBCU Sports. So what's Sleazy Radio every Tuesday now on Facebook Live. Check him and the coaches crew out. You'll be infotained. You'll be glad for it. As for me, we're both wearing the hats. Check out the Klown Times Sports blog. And so www.theklowntimes.net. You can find me on Facebook as well. Just go to where you're on your smartphone, desktop, laptop, wherever you are, wherever it may be. Type in the Klown Times. In the search window, you'll find us there as well. And one more thing, well, two more things. Please subscribe to the channel. We've been picking up lots of subscribers, and it's cool. It's hype. Lots of comments. We had a lot of comments on the ACC as far as the SEC realignment as it pertains to the ACC from last week. Lots of feedback on that. So please hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to notify your ass that, a new podcast is on YouTube. Upload to YouTube. Check us out as well. Also, one more thing. Get the merch. You see the merch.
Get the merch.
Cafe.
I'm gonna be a little civilized in the state of in the month of August. Yeah.
Wait,
get the merch.
What is that? Go to cafepress.com, search for the Klown Time Sports. I'll put the link in the description once this bad boy uploads to YouTube later on this week, possibly tomorrow, as early as tomorrow morning, and you'll find us there as well. So, with all this talk about realignment, rearing his ugly ass head again is always fun to talk about it. We're going to, like last week, we talked about it from the ACC standpoint. We're going to bring the big daddy of them all, the SEC standpoint. So watch a lot of SEC football growing up in the ACC country. I'm not embarrassed to admit that. I'm not ashamed to admit that. It's just what it is. So to help me talk about that, I bring my college buddy, who's an Alabama alum, as you see. Alabama born and raised. I call him the mouth of the South, the SEC apologist / elitist / big time Alabama alum. Cedric Call is in the house.
We won't apologize. We won't apologize.
Like I said, emphasis on unapologetic.
Hey, like I told you, I always preface, everything with, look, when I was a student at Bama, we was in a low point. So I'm enjoying every bit of this run.
Now that was under David Schuler, right? One of the Mike.
No, that was pre Mike Schuler with Mike. Okay. It started off with Mike Dubose. Stallings.
Okay.
Gene Stallings retired.
Right.
They hired Mike Dubose. Why? I still don't quite have a clue. I'm thinking that the powers that be wanted somebody they can control, and they got that, and then some in Mike Schuler. So. It set us back. That was a 10-year just of misery.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a few high moments, but
right.
For the most part, it was just, and it of course it, ended with Shula and, just it's like, look, he got to go because, it's not working out. So
yeah. So that's why I almost forgot the Schulas are from that area. So
he played. Yeah, Shula played quarterback for Alabama.
That's right.
In the 80s. So, they figure, okay, we're going to get somebody. That's kind of been, I think, part of the problem post, it is trying to find somebody that is, a Bryant disciple or whatever, and, of course, Mel Moore just, look, let me go get the best coach that's out there. So
let me ask you one more question before we get into this SEC expansion. When you mentioned the coaching successions, when Nick Saban eventually hangs him up and says, I had enough of winning, there's some rumors. The rumors. We talked about the rumors a long time ago about possibly Dabo Swinney, another Alabama alum. So
see that depends on who you talk to.
Okay.
Because Dabo was a graduate assistant under or around the time that some shenanigans went on, with the NCAA. So who knows if if that will come to fruition or not, and it could be that the people that are holding that against them may be gone by that point, but we shall see.
Wow.
Yeah.
On that note, let's get into it then.
Yeah.
All right. I mentioned it last week. I mentioned it earlier. We all know what went down in doing SEC media days. The bombshell of all bombshells, the mother lode of all bombshells. SEC not only expanding, well, first, Texas, Oklahoma reaching out to him. SEC not really denying it. And then, which meant that it was only a matter of time.
Only a matter of time. And doing some of, some reading, once it all, came out, apparently,
Excuse me.
they reached out to them last summer. They reached out to the SEC last summer. Or Texas, I want to say it was either it might have been the AD, I think.
Okay.
Reached out to SEC commissioner. And it kind of started because they had this lawsuit. The Big 12 has this lawsuit against ESPN saying that they're the reason why they don't want to be right. They don't want the Big 12 to succeed. But to be honest with you, this has probably been and I'm gonna go back to the previous when the SEC previously expanded and included Missouri and Texas A&M. Yeah. There was talk then that Oklahoma was possibly going to be added to the conference. And I think that got preempted because of course at the time Texas didn't want to give up the Longhorn Network. The Longhorn Network, but obviously there's no way they can come to the SEC and still have that.
Right.
So that I'm sure that was the first hurdle to be
right.
Look, Leah, you're gonna have to give this up, right? You can't,
because the SEC has a big time position of strength on this.
Right. So and when you think about since that time, of course the SEC network has gotten gotten more and more popular, right? And that has given them a certain amount of leverage. It's one thing to be known and thought of as the conference in college football, top to bottom, I used to always tell Scott, look, I know Vanderbilt is on the schedule. And I know that it's 11 o'clock game. But if you don't come correct in that time slot, you could be in for a dogfight. And we say Vanderbilt, of course, in the past is either Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, those teams, South Carolina, before Spurrier. If you don't come correct in that 11 o'clock time slot, you might be in trouble. And for years, the SEC has been I think the thing that is, there's been several things that they've done that have really propelled them to be in a position to where I wouldn't be surprised. We talk about conference expansion. We talk about, some of the power, the top Power Fives breaking off and really, telling the NCAA, screw you, we're going to do our own thing. This could set us up for that. Because when you have a conference like the SEC, now you've added Texas, you've added Oklahoma. In terms of football, what else what other conference comes anywhere close to that?
Right. Branding. It's all about branding. We talked about with the SWAC. We talked about later on in this podcast about this, as far as in terms of SWAC, take advantage of this. It's all about branding.
Right.
Not
so
really
now
about markets, it's branding. It's
right.
Branding.
So now it's, the SEC is the premier conference, when it comes to football.
Yes.
And now you've added two, two blues, two power, programs. Texas kind of, has not been, the same Texas, but, they have that mystique, they have that history, or that reputation that, Texas is one of the big boys. And, Oklahoma, that name really speaks for itself. So now you've added those two schools to the conference. And at this point, it's like, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't be, I don't know if they would necessarily, find another school or two, to add to the conference. I mean, I don't know that they really need to at this point.
Why would they?
But watch the moves other conferences make in response to this.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you know it's coming. It's the inevitable.
It's coming because now so you take Texas and Oklahoma away from the Big 12.
Mm-hmm.
What's left of the Big 12?
Kansas.
Yeah, at that point,
I get your point.
Kansas, Iowa State,
Oklahoma State,
Oklahoma State, Baylor. But
TCU.
It's a wrap at this point.
Yeah, it is.
Because now you have the SEC. Mm-hmm. You know, the ACC pretty much right now is Clemson and everybody else.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course, Notre Dame has their whole, I don't even know what I want to call that relationship they have with the ACC.
Oh, it's called, what is it when you, it's a polyamorous relationship. You know, we want to go ahead, we with ACC, but we ain't with them.
We not with,
we still doing
Notre Dame's for the streets. They're from the streets.
No, it's kind of like you dating this chick and y'all together, but you telling everybody when they see y'all, that's not my girl.
Yeah.
That's kind of how,
Notre Dame in this scenario is the ultimate player, right?
Yeah.
They have the ACC on his arms. Yeah, it's like taking them like a light to the ball. It's like you can't say, you want to say shit, but you can't say shit because, can you do better? Notre Dame could do better, but you can't do better. That's what ACC is.
Right. And I say that because, historically, obviously Florida State, they're down, Miami's down, but when you think about historically, the ACC, the schools that have been, the carriers of the conference, those schools are in a down cycle right now. FSU is still trying to recover post Bobby Bowden, trying to find the next, person to, kind of like Bama was when Coach Bryant, passed, it's like, okay, who's the next one to lead us out of this, back to where we were, right? In Miami, they're still trying to get back to the U that, everybody's familiar with. So they're in a, so you got the ACC there. You got, obviously, UNC is trying to make some noise, but outside of those few teams, you really don't have anything from a, football wise, from a substance perspective that, really makes them, people like watch, really look out for the ACC. And of course, the Big Ten, with Ohio State being that team, right? Mm-hmm. Who else?
Not even Michigan anymore. Michigan
is, they've done a disappearing act, and, I guess people thought that, my man was going to, he should have stayed at 49ers, to be honest with you.
No, but you know what? I understand that challenge that he was looking to take on by moving on to Michigan with Jim Harbaugh, but they just can't get over Ohio State. And this past fall, the fact that they couldn't get over Ohio State has now shown that they can't beat a couple of other teams too. So now they're going to have to not only beat those, but still try to figure out a way to beat that monster that they haven't been able to beat since Harbaugh got there. Go ahead.
He had some comments, about recruiting in Alabama and camps and stuff, sometime back, and we got him in between, when it was I think Brady Hoke was coaching.
Right. Yeah.
We got him out here, to open the season, and then we got him again. It was Mac Jones coming out party. Mm-hmm. I call it, right. He played, Tua gets hurt. He plays against Auburn, doesn't have a bad game. But it wasn't I would call it a great game, but that game against Michigan was his coming out party. So they I don't know where they go from here. Michigan. I don't. But back to the conference as a whole. So now what does the Big 12 do now? What does the Big 10 do now? If they want to be thought of as, on a, up there with the SEC, what do? They need to make a move, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, where do they
Where do they go? If it's not poaching from the ACC, or people have been saying that they may be looking to poach from their old friend, the Pac-12, right? I mean, I heard this rumor about like Kansas to the Big Ten. I don't know if y'all heard that on social media.
I did, but
I've heard that. Yeah,
that's yeah, that may sound good basketball wise, but not. That doesn't really add any value football wise, right? What does that do for them?
Well, at this point, there's nothing nobody can do truly unless you take a big dog from their conference, which probably won't happen. Let's just be real. You look at the ACC. You're not taking Clemson. You're not taking Florida State.
Because
you're not taking Miami right now.
The grant rights is like, no, in 15 years, they have to pay for all of that.
Yeah, so that's another thing too. So that's another reason why they're not going nowhere. Mm-hmm. So, okay, I mean, even if you take away the whole fact of whatever rights that these schools have with their respective conferences, being able to woo them away, especially if their conference is still viable, is damn near impossible. You're not taking away Ohio State, Michigan State away from the Big Ten. You're not taking UCLA, USC, basically Scott's key phrase, the brands, away from their respective conferences.
No,
it's not happening.
Why would they want to do it?
Yeah,
right. Why would they want to do it?
And the only way that you could, from top to bottom, football-wise, compete against the SEC is to take away one of those brands, which is why they're like, okay, we're capable of keeping ourselves afloat with what we currently have. If we want to add another piece or two, that'll be great. The only other conference, though, that could make a move would be, of course, the ACC, because they have that wayward boyfriend out there in Notre Dame for them waiting whether or not they're going to come home or not. And the possibility of that, it could be soon, in my opinion, because of what's going on with the playoffs and the fact that it's going to be that much harder for them to make it as at large, being that they're going to have those 6 automatic conference champions in.
Yeah, I want to get to that right quick, sec, because it's a good point that Dee brought up. And I want to again bring you into it because I'm glad I got you on tonight, man. The fact that Greg Sankey, commissioner of the SEC, he's one sly snake, man. He that's my dog though. I gotta give him some respect. His respect. He's been collaborating. Dude's been collaborating with Bill Bowlesby from the Big 12. The same Big 12 he's all but killed. With the expansion of the playoffs, as well as working with Jack Schwarber from Notre Dame, and many others. Some dude from the Mountain West, I forget his name. But anyway, the point is that with the expansion, the possible expansion, the inevitable expansion, the 12 teams were the top 6 ranked conference winners, whether you're a Power 5 or a Group of 5. The top 6 ranked get in, which leaves 6 at-large spots.
Yeah.
With Sankey negotiating that as well as stabbing Bowlesby in the back behind the scenes, you got Texas and Oklahoma. I know Texas is on the fritz right now, but even with Oklahoma, I think Oklahoma is going to be just fine in the SEC as far from a competitive standpoint.
I think so.
So you're going to have Oklahoma. Say like Alabama wins it, right? Wins the conference. If you take like last year's results, right, and kind of like what's the word I want to use, extrapolate it forward to future years, you have Oklahoma, A&M, who finished 5th in the final college football playoff rankings. You had who else had a good year from the SEC? Georgia, Florida. That's 4 damn teams. So you talk about 6 at-large spots. You have at least 4 more damn teams to take up the 6 spots. So basically, he did an okie doke on Notre Dame because, okay, Notre Dame thinks they're going to get their access. Dude, you qualifying for just 2 spots now.
Yeah. And the thing with Notre Dame I was thinking about too is, do they continue to make a commitment to the ACC, or does the Big Ten somehow find a way to pull them into the Big Ten?
Well, it's going to be costly in order for that to happen.
Yeah, it's going to be costly, and there's some bad blood if you go back to the history of the Big Ten and Notre Dame.
True.
It's a lot of
so
bad
I mean,
blood there.
but in terms of making a power move,
Right? Yeah.
that would be a power move. Not saying it's going to happen, but that would be a power move.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. And then I'm interested to see what happens with the Pac-12 and what they do moving forward. How they how they position themselves.
But as of right now, the commissioner made an announcement during their media day that they're not looking to expand right now. But of course,
bullshit.
Well, I mean, he followed that up right back with, "We're not looking to expand right now, but we're going to investigate it." Right. So basically, you're looking to expand. Let's be real.
Right.
Basically,
right.
Put a positive to the negative. Dude, you're doing it. Stop playing. The question is though,
it's okay. So looking at the Pac-12, obviously they're going to look at including teams from the Big 12, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Depending on who that is, it remains to be seen who those teams end up becoming, because I just don't see the Big 12 lasting much longer.
You know what's such? I beg to differ, and let me explain why. Right. First and foremost, let's be real. They were the fifth Beatle in this situation. It was basically Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5. And I'm talking from a brand perspective with Texas and everybody else. But if you're talking about from a talent perspective, as it pertains to football, it was Oklahoma and everybody else. So either way you look at it, it's still Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5. And they were still the fifth best in amongst those Power 5 conferences. Even if they were to add teams from either the Conference USA, the AAC, wherever those schools within that region, it would still be the best or the fifth best of that Power 5. There's no way in the world they're getting out of that number 5 slot.
Right. The money they won't be getting. And the money, they're not getting that money when Texas and Oklahoma officially leaves. But
no. So I mean, so that they're losing 2 big schools, but they were already the fifth dog anyway. So it really don't even matter. And because of the brand that they've created as a conference, if they could somehow get some other teams in there, that would be the best way to keep them viable. But what they currently have, that's going to be a problem if they can't seem to fill those slots. Yeah. But the possibility of them filling those slots is going to be there for those teams that are going to want to look to participate in the playoffs, because they already know that's an automatic qualifier. That's right automatic, there. Correct. Whereas being those group of 5 teams, you don't get that. And then you, of course, you have, they have the ability to go ahead, not now, because unless they move with CBS, I was going to say they could do like everybody else just about and do a deal with ESPN, but no, you can't do that because now you're suing them. Right. Yeah. So now you burn that bridge. CBS. So you already burnt that bridge. So they're going to need that network, and they're going to need to do something soon about that. But like I said before, I don't see them being any worse than what they currently are, unless they can't fill slots.
And that's a good point. That I didn't think about that. That is a good point, right? You lose those 2 schools, you just need to fill those spots, right? And teams that would be open to that would be schools that are, look, I want to get into the playoffs, so therefore I need to align my, even though you're not number 1 in terms of Power 5, right? You still in the door, right?
Right.
So for now.
For now. Speaking of which, since we're already talking about it, let's just do this. Like, let's play a game of where the hell are the other Big 12 schools going to go, right? So I think let's just start with the easiest one. I think West Virginia's ACC bound. I think it's the inevitable. They're right in the middle of the footprint. I know the ACC likes to be at the Big Ten, give a damn about athletics, but let's just be real. They got Louisville a few years ago to replace Maryland. Louisville at the time wasn't the most academically sound school. So they're great in their athletics. This is why the ACC nabbed them. And they've been happy about it ever since. You go past the University of Louisville, it's only an hour and a half south of here, or Cincinnati. You can see where the ACC money is kicking in. Let's put it that way. So West Virginia already has a rivalry with Pitt. The backyard ball should be played every damn year, as well as Penn State and Pitt, but that's another story from the time. And as well as Virginia Tech, rivalries with Virginia Tech, Syracuse,
I know it took 5 minutes.
and who else? Boston College, and I think Louisville. So they're a natural fit. Now let's go to the more murkier ones, right? We mentioned the Big Ten. People talking about Kansas. Someone was saying either Kansas and Oklahoma State or Kansas and Iowa State because of the footprint. It's all about the markets at this point.
Yeah.
Oh, of course.
It's all about the markets at this point. And last but not least, as far as the Pac-12 goes, they're talking about that alliance or whatever the hell they called it. I think only two Big 12 teams would maybe fit that. And if out is Oklahoma State and Texas Tech, just again for footprint and for football reasons. You get Texas Tech, you can recruit Texas as a Pac-12 school. Same with Oklahoma State. You can still technically recruit Texas still, right? And so that's why and the rest of those schools, the two private schools, Baylor, TCU, and Kansas State, they have Group of Five written all over their asses. I don't think they had any value to a Power Five. But what say you, bro? Where the hell are these Big 12 schools left behind going to go?
Yeah, I mean, initially I thought, hey, they would, that conference would dissolve, but I don't know that necessarily the Big 12 wants that to happen, right?
Sure.
I think they're going to try to do what they can to pull, and it may be pulling in a team that that may not be on the radar in terms of, that's currently in a Power Five, right?
Sure.
And I say that I'm thinking about a school like a Houston, right?
Cincinnati too.
From a enrollment perspective, those numbers are up there. They just don't necessarily have the hadn't been in one of those conferences. They can compete, obviously. Houston, is they're in Texas, they're in Houston. They recruiting wise, they have access to players. Right. So I could definitely see a school like Houston rolling with the Big 12. I think if something like that happened, I think that would say that Big 12 is here to stay, right? Because they're in what conference they're in now, what they call it, the American
Athletic Conference,
Conference, right? The AAC, right? I think seeing them them pulling Houston out of the AAC, I think would do a lot in terms of solidifying where they stand in their viability as a conference. Definitely. I'm trying to think, was there somebody? I think that was the only school that I really thought that would potentially, to me, was a viable fit for the Big 12, and I think it makes sense. It's in Texas. I mean, it doesn't add anything in terms of additional, viewers or viewership or like you would see if you were to add a market outside of Texas, but still, Houston is that's a large market, TV market. So I think that could help them.
Yeah. Now I have a short grocery list of teams that they can probably pluck from the Group of Five conferences to help them out. Now, even though there are a couple of schools in the Sun Belt that regionally could help out, I don't know if they're necessarily strong enough program wise or brand wise to bring them in. Of course, being Louisiana, Monroe, South Alabama, Texas State, and Troy. But if you look at Conference USA and in the AAC, like I said before, you go through and you want to make a shopping list. Okay, Texas San Antonio, maybe. UTEP, maybe.
Yeah.
Alabama, Birmingham, maybe. Maybe Southern Miss. Rice, North Texas, Louisiana Tech, SMU, like you said, Houston, Tulane, Tulsa, and who else? And if you want to be a super reacher, Cincinnati or Memphis. So those are that would be a grocery list of teams I would look at potentially, and then try to figure out what 2 or 4 from that group I would take to go ahead and
now
help.
you mentioned North Texas. That's an intriguing one to me.
Okay.
Obviously, they had some success, and I know we're talking about football, but obviously they had some success during the NCAA tournament. And then from a football perspective, teams are scheduling them. And they've made their rounds in terms of playing against some of the Power 5 schools. Teams tend to schedule the Mean Green. We played them a few times, but they could potentially that could really ramp up recruiting for them, being added to the Big 12. They could take them to another level, obviously.
Oh, most definitely. And that would, like you said, huge benefit for them football wise.
Definitely huge.
They may not be a Power 5 team now,
right?
But because of their other programs, and you got to remember, ADs look at these moves in terms of realignment holistically. How would this benefit everyone?
Everyone,
right?
Yep.
From the revenue sports to the non-revenue sports.
Correct.
From men's basketball to golf, tennis.
Yeah.
How would this move benefit everyone?
Yeah.
And that is a move that would be super beneficial for them. And like you said, Cedric, something I didn't even think about was how competitive their men's basketball program is.
Right. It would definitely be a come up for them. Right.
Yeah. And North Texas is in Dallas, right?
Yeah, it's in Denton, which is I'm in Frisco, and it's probably it's a suburb. It's probably 30 minutes from here. So yeah,
it's not a Big 12. That's the Dallas TV market, player.
That is the Dallas TV market. Yes, so it is.
That's another TV market that you could go after potentially, and go at. Now I understand North Texas is not the University of Texas, blah blah blah. But how big would you say that fan base is?
How about SMU though?
Area?
SMU's is in Dallas.
Yeah, SMU's in Dallas also.
Right? Yeah. They're really on the come up.
Yeah, so those are 2 programs in that big TV market that you could look at and say, hey, if not both, why not one? And bring them in, and we're looking at another TV market to go ahead and usher into this conference, along with making us a little bit more attractive in terms of getting a network.
Now you mentioned another school, and you mentioned Troy, which is in Alabama. And for years, they were competing at what we used to call the 1AA. And they're one of those teams that you schedule us for homecoming, you want.
Yeah, who did it got the business on homecoming a couple of years ago?
No, Nebraska got it once. Yeah, we gonna cash your check, but we bringing you something else to go along with. We bringing you something.
Didn't it be LSU?
You gonna take this along with this, along with us cashing your check. You gonna take this too. I think they got LSU once too.
Yeah,
LSU.
They beat LSU.
Yeah, that's who it was.
So, and we had to say in Alabama, man, Troy been good for a minute. So when they were 1AA, they were that team that and these are guys that couldn't quite whether it be Grace or whatever, couldn't quite get it to Auburn, get into Alabama, but talent wise they're just as good as some of the guys that are playing in Alabama and Auburn. So
yeah,
and they played against them in high school.
Played against them in high school. So yeah, that's a Southern Miss is another one. They've been we play them regularly too. So they're another name that could potentially from a TV market perspective. I don't know how much that what that really adds, but that it definitely those 2 schools wouldn't hurt themselves by taking an offer from the Big 12.
So this all leads to this, fellas. with all this shit with realignment started by the big bad SEC, where do you see the college football landscape or even the college football playoff 5 years from now? Where does this slow down college football playoff expansion? Does this accelerate the super leagues? Does it accelerate the power, the four of how many ever super leagues that will eventually form for this, breaking off from the NCAA, telling them to kick rocks? We're going to do our own thing. Dwayne, I start with you and said, just please run us out on this, finish this off on this. Where do you see the college football landscape as we know it 5 years from
Now, see, I don't want to be what I normally am, which is the overthinker. And the reason why I say that is, I'm thinking about how will, the NIL affect college football?
Yeah.
How will the NCAA respond to that? Revenue and all of that as it pertains to what's going on with these Power 5 conferences. All of that are things that's going to have to be taken into consideration. But I don't want to be that spoiler. I'm just going to go ahead and be the dude that's like, okay, all right, fine. What's going to happen? Normally, that 5-year window, actually, at that point, they would probably be, in year 3 or 4 of having the 12-team playoff. And at that point, somebody would have complained or the murmurs will start to bubble in terms of, oh my God, we're team 13 for 2 years in a row. They need to go ahead and expand this thing, right? Because let's be real. It happens. It happens on the FCS level. Even when they had the 20 and 2014 playoffs, team number 25 is complaining. Right. So you're never hell in basketball. When you got your 68 or your 68, team 69 is complaining.
Always.
So it don't matter how far you expand this thing out, somebody's going to feel left out. And the thing is, who is it going to be? How powerful is that school? And how loud will the rumblings be? And how serious would it be taken? Because if it gets to a point where it's someone big, i.e. like a Notre Dame again, or someone from the Pac-12 continuously, even though this time they'll automatically have one in there. Would that be a situation? Or, it can go either way. I'm going to say it's going to be a situation where we're at 12 and people are beefing about moving into 16. That's where I'm gonna go.
I'm going to take it to the standpoint of I think this probably gets us to a situation where you have the top teams, top conferences breaking off and doing their own thing and saying, screw the NCAA.
Yeah, I think that's going to happen.
I think this move of Oklahoma and Texas into the SEC now in a few years, it gives the SEC a whole lot more leverage than it had 6 months ago. So, and I always thought that if any conference would be at the forefront of, moving toward a lead or a scenario where they broke away from the NCAA, it would be someone like the SEC being able to lead that effort. And I think adding Texas and Oklahoma definitely gives them the leverage they need to do that.
Now, 2 things real quick, and hopefully, Scott, I'm not moving too fast, right? So, but I've said this on the show before. Yeah. With all of the teams that are within the Power 5 conference and Notre Dame, you might as well count them too, because I'm not just thinking football, I'm thinking basketball as well, right? You get 64, 65 teams. That means you could do your playoffs, however you want to do it, and you'll be able to do your own basketball tournament. One team will get left out, but you could do a 64-team tournament with all of the teams in the Power 5, and you don't think that the nation will watch it? Yeah. Are you kidding me?
That's a good. Yeah.
So that's something that's highly possible. But the thing that I've been lining up for the past couple of days, ever since Scott said that you were coming on the show, Cedric, I had to ask this question. I'm wondering whether or not, and with you being an Alabama fan living in Texas, I want to know, is Texas using Nebraska as a cautionary tale to what could happen to them, right? You know, Nebraska was a blue blood in college football. In the Big 12, they move over to the Big 10, and where they at though? Now they sticky trash.
You know,
I was gonna say Texas is has the possibility of being just that. Moving over to the SEC, you got Alabama, you got Florida, Georgia, LSU, Oklahoma. That's 5 teams right there.
Yeah,
and then say if another team comes up somewhere out of Texas, A&M is bubbling right now.
Yeah,
that's problematic for Texas. Do they really want this smoke and moving over to the SEC?
Well, here's the way I look at it: is if you don't move to SEC, how relevant do you or how you become irrelevant at some point, right? Because I don't know that there was any other move for them other than moving to the SEC if they wanted to remain to remain relevant, in my opinion. Because I mean, they could have gone to the Pac-12, obviously, but I don't know that necessarily fits.
Neither do I. I don't think it fits culture-wise.
Right. That's what I'm referring to from a culture perspective. I don't know that necessarily fits Texas. I think Texas is really more suited to, the SEC. Just like Oklahoma. I think those two schools are really more suited for. I mean, obviously that makes competition and conference that much more. Makes things much more competitive. But then at the same time, if you're expanding the playoff, and you got, of course, you got your automatic qualifiers, and then you got the at-large. Tell me, teams like Oklahoma, I mean, obviously LSU is down, but I'm basing this on previous records. So we know Oklahoma is going to get in, right? Florida's been good, as you said. Georgia, is there.
Yep.
So you have 4 or 5 schools outside of Alabama that could potentially snatch up those
at-large bids.
Bids. So
which is gangster by Greg Singer. That's
right.
Straight gangster by him.
So the thing is, do you remain in a conference where there isn't you don't have necessarily have that and you have to because let's think about it in this scenario in the Big 12 remaining the way it is. Who gets in outside of the winner of the conference?
No one.
Right.
Let's be real, no one. Because they beat themselves up so much.
Right. So now you move to the SEC and hey, I may not win the conference, but I'm going to be thought of as an at-large team because I played well in this conference, right?
But that's the thing though, right? At least in the Big 12, they were probably top 3, top 4, right? Now they move over to the SEC. They're 6th, 7th, 8th best, and this is even before they even play the game in the conference.
Yeah.
And they look like they could be borderline another UT, which is the University of Tennessee. So they move over to the SEC and do that. How relevant are they then? Because you no longer have a network. You lose that by moving over to the SEC. You're now sub 500 potentially.
Yeah.
You're losing recruits to other teams and from your state to other teams in your conference.
But
that spells Nebraska to me all day.
I think the difference between I think the things that Texas has going from it and Nebraska didn't. One is Nebraska's ego got the best of them. And I'm not saying Texas doesn't have it.
They were butthurt by Texas.
Right. And I'm not saying Texas doesn't have an ego, but I feel like for them to say or agree to, okay, you got to give up the Longhorn Network. For them to agree to that, I think that might be them or their way of saying, okay, right, we're going to have to check our ego at the door. I mean, obviously the fans got egos that are out of this world.
Oh, hell yeah.
Texas,
we know some Texas Longhorn fans personally.
Texas guys that,
we know some personally. Yeah.
And they that oil money, that, those deep pockets, we richer than everybody else. So therefore we can do whatever we want to. I don't think that wasn't gonna fly in the SEC. Right. So yeah, you have an opinion just like all the other member schools, and we will take your opinion.
I'll say this, man, as far as the Texas and Nebraska comparison, at least Texas has a fertile area where they can recruit from, right?
And that's another point too.
That's the point.
Nebraska does not.
That's an. Yes. And you know what, you mentioned Tennessee. You brought up Tennessee. That is Tennessee's issue. Tennessee is not a recruiting hotbed.
Right.
Not no more. Yeah.
Right.
And that is what's really, that, and they, we won't get started in the dirt, Phil Former did, but trying to bring Alabama down. But however, they've never been a huge, they've had some good players come out of Tennessee, but they were never a huge recruiting power. And when you look at those teams that you look at the roster when they won the national championship, T. Martin was from Alabama. Running back, forget his name. He was from Atlanta. So yeah, they recruited Tennessee, but they also went and recruited, the Southeast also.
Right.
Yeah.
You see, in Nebraska's case, in even the Big 8 days before the Big 12, because they play at Oklahoma every year, they were to go down to Oklahoma and Texas to recruit.
Yes.
And that picked up in the Big 12, but obviously when you leave the Big 12, how are you going to convince some kids from Texas and Oklahoma even to go ball in the Midwest? That's a zero.
Texas is such a recruiting hotbed. It's such a for the recruiting ground. They can't recruit every player in the state of Texas, right?
No.
Right.
You can only sign 25 guys a year. And there's enough talent to go around in the state to where everybody can get the guys that they want. There's the talent, that much talent is here. So I back to your point. Yeah, I think they look at Nebraska as a cautionary tale of we know what not to do.
Exactly. There you go. So go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, we could put a bow on this segment, because it's going to be, goddamn, I love college football. And stuff like this, man, conference realignment, the college football play, well, forget the college football playoff expansion that's going to eventually happen. This realignment stuff, it's just, that's water cooler talk. I've been glued to radio stations I never even heard of talking about this.
It's funny though,
Texas.
I was in, we went to Alabama, drove to Alabama. It was actually the week that it was SEC Media Days. It was that Wednesday, I believe. We were driving to Alabama, and, listen to the radio, and I'm like, I can't believe. And, the news is breaking, Feinbaum is breaking, with Texas and, Oklahoma, OU, or, it could potentially happen. Of course, Texas A&M saying they don't want them in the conference, blah, 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 this and that. They won't sign off on it. But, obviously somebody told them they need to keep the mouth shut.
Yeah.
But, I'm thinking, I'm just like, isn't this like Texas to do something like that where A&M is about to get on the podium and, at media days, and then this story breaks. Like, that's
the pettiness is
if that's not petty, I don't know what is.
Hey, but I've seen it so much here in DC where one team is doing well and the football team is like, oh, y'all doing good? Hey, I need attention too. Yeah, I've seen that blueprint.
Hey, but what another thing it does, that Texas A&M, UT rivalry is back on, right? And it continues.
It's about time.
And it continues the Red River Shootout with OU and Texas. So so I mean, of course, obviously, I was telling one of my coworkers, I was, when the news broke. And I said, you know what this means, don't you? I said, it means Alabama gets to whoop Texas on a more regular basis.
Of course. And moving right along, speaking of Alabama, to our HBCU Sports segment, where we rap about things HBCU Sports. My man at the bottom, Dwayne Nash, that's his bread and butter. I say speaking of Alabama because instead of Alabama, in addition to the great Crimson Tide, you got two powers on the FCS level, I believe, in the SWAC and Alabama State and Alabama A&M. And so I'm gonna let Dwayne take the sun because we got cats in the Olympics competing, and we also got some football news with Media Days wrapped up not too long ago. And we talk about branding and conferences. They got two brands coming up, and FAMU, Florida A&M, for those who don't know, and Bethune with the scheduling too, with the stuff with the Florida Classic between Deion Sanders, Jackson State, and FAMU. That's going to be off the chain. That's going to be on ESPN Network. So, Dwayne, let you take it away, but we're going to rap about this for a while because, again, all three of us, we're immersed in that shit too. So, go ahead, D.
Yeah, I am so disappointed at COVID right now, man, because I wanted to be at that Florida that Orange Blossom Classic so bad. Oh my God, to have Florida A&M be introduced to the SWAC by playing Deion Sanders and Jackson State. Oh, damn you, Delta! I swear.
Damn those people who don't mask up. Damn them.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
My God. But you talk about Alabama. So today, FCS Stats has released their Walter Payton Award preseason watch list, and of course, the SWAC Offensive Player of the Year last year, Akil Glass, who everyone likes as being a potential pro prospect at the quarterback spot from Alabama A&M, is one of the 4 HBCU athletes that's on that list. Also joined by Jaquan Carter, the quarterback out of Norfolk State, who had a monstrous year last year. I'm intrigued to see what he's going to do in my man Dawson Odom's offense this upcoming fall in this newly condensed MEAC. And then, of course, you also have Felix Harper from Alcorn State, the freshman phenom from a couple of seasons ago that helped lead Alcorn State to the Celebration Bowl. Also was Offensive Player of the Year his freshman year. Now he returns after not playing in the spring. I'm intrigued to see what he's going to do. And then, of course, my man, the main train, John Maine Martin out of North Carolina A&T, the running back, his first season in the Big South. It's going to be very interesting to see what the Aggies do, even though a portion of their conference is still the MEAC, where they still have games against Norfolk State, I think South Carolina State, and not Norfolk State, I'm sorry, North Carolina Central, South Carolina State, and I want to say they may have one more MEAC opponent as well. I know people are killing me right now. T Nash, you're supposed to know that schedule. I'm gonna say this: forget you, Bamas. I got a lot on my mind right now. But like you said, Scott, there are a lot of HBCU athletes out there, especially in track and field, that have been participating in the Olympics. Of course, most notably the one that everyone's been talking about, the sophomore sensation Randolph Ross that ran in the 400. Also, Joseph Amoa out of Coppin State. Matter of fact, I have the entire list of all the athletes on both my Twitter and Instagram accounts in terms of the schedules and when to watch them and where to watch them. Of course, those accounts are the Yard HBCU. But I have to make this announcement about Trevor Stewart from North Carolina A&T. He ran in a mixed 4x400 relay for the United States and walked away with a bronze medal. So Trevor Stewart becomes the first person from North Carolina A&T to win an Olympic medal. Hopefully he is not the second, because both him and Randolph Ross are members of the men's 4x400 relay team as well. So like I said before, there are a couple of more races coming up, a couple of more events coming up in the next couple of days. Quinera Hayes that runs the 400. I know that she's advanced to the semis, if memory serves me. So there are a couple of other athletes that are running, a couple of guys that are running in the 4x100 as well from Coppin State and Jackson State. So yeah, like I said before, check me out on social media. I got the entire list of the guys that are and the women who are racing, and along with the schedule in which and their start times and days as well.
Now, when we talked about football, like you mentioned it, yeah, damn you, COVID, not be able to see Jackson State and FAMU in person. But Sergio, we talked about in the past, and we're going to talk about it right before the season starts. About the SWAC taking advantage of having a lot of the major brands, Grambling, Southern, now FAMU. I'm missing Jackson State. Some people can consider like kind of a brand now, thanks to Dion.
Oh, most definitely, yeah.
And a couple other schools that I'm probably missing. And please, I apologize to SWAC fans out there. Don't blame me. What I'm trying to say is
Southern, Florida, and
yeah,
Grambling.
Yeah.
You want to go ahead and throw in there. Alabama State is on the rise right now as a program.
Yeah.
In terms of popularity,
most definitely.
Even I mean, white people know who FAMU is, at least from the band. Who FAMU is, know who Southern is, know who Grambling is. They know who Jackson State is now. Those are your brands. So basically, Cedric, we were saying, okay, we were before streaming, we were talking about the possibility of of SWAC and the other HBCUs at the time, conferences getting the HBCU Sports channel. Now with everything going to streaming, now with these power moves that the SWAC has made, and and the attention that the SWAC has been getting, and rightfully so, push why not leverage ESPN Plus, right? To get more of your games. Why not? I mean, hell, you're going up against the SEC, the ACC, two of the ESPN's biggest properties, right? For television love. So
the SEC is under CBS.
For now, yes. For now, yes. Yes, for now. But the point is, still be that as it may, why do our colleges, I would call them, they're so stuck, they don't understand. They're starting to understand now with streaming, because anybody can watch a game anywhere.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm glad that they're moving forward, man. But can you imagine, Cedric, with all those brands and the HBCU conference, those big brands, the SWAC has the potential of sitting on top of a big ass gold mine that they don't even know about.
Yeah, I agree. They don't. And you're right. With streaming, you can watch any game anywhere you want.
Yes.
And people will tune in to watch football. I mean, the thing about college football is, it doesn't matter who's playing.
Mm-hmm. You got that right. Like check out what happened last year before the Big Ten and the Pac-12 resumed their seasons. You got love from the fucking Conference USA, the Sun Belt, all those games of ESPN. People I got hype over it. I got hype over watching Appalachian State and Coastal Carolina and
because no one else is on. So you had, it's football.
Three good teams.
It's football season, and I'm watching, and I want to watch football, and that's in essence, that's what
And the fact is that those three teams I mentioned were pretty good.
Yeah.
On top of that, so that just goes to show how. I mean, thankfully, those SWAC schools understand. At least not the schools. I want to say the commissioner, and maybe some campus presence. But anyway, the point is, from what I understand, from what Dwayne, he's glued to this stuff. What we all understand is they're realizing the benefits of streaming.
Yeah.
They're not bitching too much about having games relegated, if you will, to ESPN Plus. That means that anybody and their mamas can still watch it.
Yeah, and you think about, I mean, obviously streaming is the way things are, moving toward anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But that gives you exposure, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you want. You want people to be exposed to your brand. And I just think they just need to reevaluate how they're really thinking about, what this can do for us long term in terms of revenue.
Right.
And of course, obviously, we know those schools, obviously don't have the revenue generation, are not revenue generating like some of the, when you look at the Power Five, right?
Mhm.
But any revenue is good revenue.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
I
Yes.
think that, as you stated, it's probably it's probably a gold mine that's kind of been untapped.
Yeah,
And
it's most definitely being untapped, and it's kind of self-inflicted, right?
yeah.
Now, I occasionally I'll name drop on the show. Scott knows this. Had a conversation with John Silver, the former president over at ESPN a few years ago,
John Skipper,
where
right?
John Skipper. That's right.
Yeah.
See, I'm always forgetting his name, right? I just know him as that dude.
Mm.
John Skipper had a conversation with him, and he told me then that they were looking to expand. This is like 2016. They were looking to expand their coverage of HBCU athletics. The thing is, though, if you listen to what the current commissioner of the SWAC, Charles McClendon, said, during the spring, was that all they want is television exposure. They don't want to necessarily be on ESPN3 or ESPN Plus. They want ESPNU, ESPN2, and ESPN. And I thought that was rather limiting to them as a brand, right? They got that benefit of being able to do so during the spring because there really wasn't much else for them to compete against.
Right.
And the fact that they were having games being moved up to those networks then was great for them. But now that they have to compete with the Power Five conferences, with the other 5 conferences, hell, with the other FCS conferences, and you don't necessarily have a dedicated network for yourself, you got to figure it out. Now, they are happy about the exposure that they're going to get this upcoming season. I find it funny, as much as the commissioner has said some stuff, Deion Sanders has said some stuff about not being on ESPN3, ESPN Plus, ESPN8, as he loves to call it. But a lot of their games this season is going to be on ESPN Plus. So the one thing they didn't want to do is the one thing that they're doing, and they're happy about it. So I'm like, dude, you should have been happy about this from the get-go.
Yeah.
But I digress. That's another beef and another conversation for another time. But my thing is this. They need to get to a point where they have more than just, say, like a portion of their schedule on TV. They need to have, like everyone else, just about all the other conferences, the only other conferences that don't have the majority of their games on any type of broadcast just happen to be the 2 HBCU conferences, Division I, and that's the MEAC and the SWAC.
Mhm.
If they can go ahead and have it, so just say if I want to go watch Mississippi Valley State play against Texas Southern, I can't on football because it's just not part of that package. They only want to show the best, and I understand people only want to watch the best of the best. But hey, I like watching all HBCU things, so I want to see the 2 worst teams in the conference play sometimes too.
Yeah.
As bad as that game could be, but I digress. I'm just happy that they're getting to that they're accepting what's going on. The only thing is, though, they need to expand and have it so that all of their revenue sports are broadcasted somehow, some way, because they need to catch up to the likes of everyone else. And that's where that problem is. In order for them to be what I think that they could be, that's one of the steps that they're going to have to take.
Yeah, this is more discussion to be had on that, but at least I'm glad the SWAC is getting the shine again. You got to take advantage of having those brands, y'all. You got to take advantage of having those brands. You see what the SEC is doing, albeit on the Power 5 level, on the FBS level, but still, it's still the same principle. You got the brands, you got to leverage that shit, y'all. You see what the moves the SEC is making. That could be you, SWAC. Just be patient, not be patient. Just take advantage of the exposure because, again, you got most of the brands in FCS, period. You got the brands. So you got to leverage that shit. You got to be smart about it. So it remains to be seen. Let's switch to the NBA right quick, man. All this free agency, man. Yo, with Kemba just got signed. by the Knicks. You got Evan Fournier to the Knicks. Look. The Knicks making the playoffs last season. I'm just a kid in the candy, so I don't give a damn. We got Timberlake swept by Atlanta in the first round. I remember we got in the playoffs. But speaking of Atlanta, they're about to sign Trae Young to the max.
Yeah,
Supermax.
I saw that.
And they're about to sign John Collins as well. And we hadn't talked. We hadn't mentioned Brooklyn getting the injury players back, the superstars back. It's going to in Miami. Yeah. Kyle Lowry to Miami and everything else. I know he's a little bit long in the tooth, but that's leadership, man. And you're going to a well-coached squad. And I haven't touched the Western Conference yet. The East is going to be bananas, man. I mean, I still think it's going to be Brooklyn and Milwaukee's world. Yeah. But, man, Cedric, we already love the NBA as it is. I mean, if you count what's going on in LA with getting the band back, we'll get to them in the moment. Conference, it's going to be straight bananas, man. It's going to be exciting as hell.
Yeah, I mean, I think I told you this, in the playoffs, when that Brooklyn and Milwaukee series, I was like, okay, whoever wins this series is going to win the title. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, Giannis, he came to play that series. I think I had one game where they kind of, I don't necessarily think they contained him, but I think he was still trying to feel himself from that, injury or whatever. But Milwaukee is going to be they're going to make some noise. I don't expect this to be a one-time thing for them.
Right. Right.
And I know Brooklyn, obviously has some injuries, but Milwaukee did what they were supposed to do. Mm-hmm. So, and I know Chris Paul, he re-signed he's expected to re-sign, or did he re-sign already?
Yeah, he re-signed.
He re-signed with the Suns. So
4 years to $120 million. Yeah.
Okay, so he got, he's getting paid. Obviously, they need to figure some stuff out there because they didn't have an answer. They didn't know how to.
Giannis ate them up.
He ate them up, and they had no answer for him at all. And I don't know, they just weren't able to make the adjustments.
Well, let me ask you this real quick, man, and Dwayne, feel free to chime in as well. We were talking 2 weeks ago or last week, Dwayne, about is this like a one-off as far as teams without more than one superstar winning it all? Because even though Milwaukee, nor Phoenix for that matter, could not control the injury bug, but other teams suffered. Mm-hmm. It's still, people still look at this like, well, but right? Yeah, but what if Kawhi was not hurt? Would they have taken out Phoenix? Yeah. What if Anthony Davis get hurt again in the first round? LeBron would have playing on one leg essentially against Phoenix. What if the second round in Denver? What if Jamal Murray wasn't hurt for Denver? Mm-hmm. What if Kyrie didn't get hurt? What if James Harden wasn't playing on one leg against Milwaukee? You know what I'm saying? It's so many what ifs. So basically, people were thinking, well, shit, we may get back to the favorites being back, right? The teams with more than one superstar. But I just think that it was this year, the Rays were up in the playoffs because it was fresh blood. Uh-huh. But even though both teams even though these other teams I mentioned are going to be healthier next season, Milwaukee and Phoenix are not going away.
No, they're not.
No.
Because this is going to make it hella exciting. So I don't think it's going to be a one-off. I don't think it's going to be a one-off. I think Milwaukee's right there again. And Phoenix too.
Yeah, it's possible. I definitely I think it's possible for both of them to make it back and make a run. I mean, I don't know, man. I think Milwaukee's going to be tough to beat, and you look at some of the other teams in the East, they're much older than Milwaukee is.
Uh-huh.
So
but I'll say this though, right? So Brooklyn just got a little bit lighter today. Spencer Dinwiddie got traded to Washington today. I just saw that just now. So they lose a player, but my God, Scott, you know my feelings about the whole injury thing as it pertains to James Harden. I'm gonna still need James Harden to show me the fact that he's effective in the playoffs in order for me to believe that him being hurt it was actually a relevant reason for him to be playing bad in the playoffs.
Right.
But even still, even though a lot of these teams, Chicago, who's made a lot of moves and gotten better.
They made a lot of moves.
Yes, New York has gotten better. Atlanta has signed the guys that played well for them and kept them in the house. Washington has added some interesting pieces. I'm looking to see how they do. Detroit just drafted your boy number 1 overall.
So
will they be able to turn around? Exactly, right? Philadelphia, what do they do? And how will Ben Simmons respond with all of this trade rumor talk, right?
Yeah,
he's done. He's done.
Yeah, so it's going to be intriguing to see what happens within the Eastern Conference. Now, let's be real. There are 2 teams, well, 3. I'm going to go ahead and add the Miami Heat because I like the moves that they've made as well. Now, they may not have the offensive firepower, but the one thing that they do have are dogs that can play defense.
And they've always had that.
Yeah,
and they've always had that.
And good coaching.
And good coaching.
They've always had that.
And, and Kyle Lowry, even though he's a good offensive player, he does play good defense. And then you know who else they signed away from Milwaukee? That dog himself, PJ Tucker. Yeah. So you add all of that defense onto that team.
And toughness.
You were talking about a team that was in the NBA Finals just 2 seasons ago. Yeah, that team is going to be very interesting. But I don't want to take away from the fact that it's just going to be fun basketball to watch.
Yeah,
with all of these teams potentially being competitive at least.
Right.
It's not going to be 4 teams in the East and a bunch of trash. It's going to be a bunch of, on paper, competitive teams going on in the East. Now, the new team, and from my understanding, it hasn't become official yet, but you know how teams have to have like their sponsor, their logo on the jersey. From my understanding, the new sponsor for the LA Lakers is going to be Icy Hot because they have 10 players or 8 players on their roster over 30.
Past their primes. They're past their primes.
Yeah.
But see, the thing is this, right?
LeBron.
They'll look good in a 7-game series, right? But the thing that's going to be most important for them is playing throughout the regular season. We already know how Bama's feel about minute restrictions throughout the season. I'm going to be intrigued to see how many of those guys who are over 30 that actually play over 70 games this year. I really am. I'm going to be taking a peek at that. But the thing is, that means that seeding is going to be important for them. And being that they're in the Western Conference with a bunch of young, talented teams, Phoenix, Denver, Utah, the Clippers, if they can re-sign Kawhi, has that happened yet?
They think it's going to happen. Nothing's sure yet. You never know with Kawhi.
And didn't they say something about him having surgery? So if they can re-sign him and surgery doesn't keep him out long, then you got the Clippers and the Dallas Mavericks that are good. Yeah. So the Lakers are currently, in essence, fighting for a 4th or 5th seed. Yeah. If they don't get that 4th seed, that means they don't get a home court advantage.
You're right.
If they don't get a home court advantage, it makes it that much more difficult for this aged veteran team to win games. But the one thing to their benefit is that they're aged and they're veterans and they know how to win on the road. Yeah. So, I know some people are excited to see this team. They still missing, in my opinion, a consistent outside shooting threat, even though Carmelo can't stretch the floor. Ariza can occasionally stretch the floor as well. They got tougher down low by bringing Dwight back. They get another facilitator in Russell Westbrook. I was about to call him Russell Wilson. Oh my God. But yeah, they get another facilitator in Russ. So this team, once again, on paper, looks good. But how will they look through at 82? That's what I'm waiting to see.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah. Who's the man to be seen? I want to see where the shooting's going to come from, but we'll say about that too. Who's going to shoot the 3?
Oh, Jesus, you don't want Russ shooting it.
Definitely.
Who's going to shoot the 3? So either way, it's going to be exciting. We're going to talk more about this next week anyway, because I think the NBA machine is still percolating. We don't know where Ben Simmons is going to end up. We don't know where Dame Lillard's going to end up. So we'll see about that. But anyway, let's wrap it up, guys. Great podcast, man. Thank you, Cedric, for coming on.
Yes.
I enjoyed the talk about SEC.
Man, I think the last time I was on, we were doing the, call in.
Yeah, we're doing the call. Yeah, this is your first time on the video, so we're gonna get you back, man. We're gonna definitely get you back. And also, thanks to my man Dwayne Nash, my co-host. Check him out on Yards HBCU Sports, reps of all things HBCU Sports. Sleazy Radio every Tuesday on Facebook Live. Check him and the coach and the crew out. You'd be glad you did. Check us great work at herosports.com, as I mentioned earlier, with the rest of all things SCS as pertains to the HBCUs. You see the website here. Check me out on www.theklownTop.net. I already told you about the merch, cafepress.com. You see us wearing the merch. We can put the address in the description below tomorrow or Friday. Search for the Klown Sports there. Subscribe. As always, share, comment, like. Hell, you can dislike me for I care. Just comment and share. We'll love it. Spread the word, as well as wash your goddamn hands so we can get some college football in for a full season. Wear a fucking mask. Get your vaccinated. Stop being an idiot. I want my college football season. Sid wants this college football season. Dwayne wants this college football season. I want my college football season and NFL season. Just do the damn thing. Wash your hands. Make everything safe. Bring everything back. Until next time, peace out. We out.